The sun is not yet risen over the stone spine of Taygetus, but the air already bites like iron. A faint blue mist clings to the valley below. Sparta still sleeping, if sleeping is something Spartans ever truly do. You stand in a narrow barrack made of cedar and dust, bare feet pressed to the cold ground, and you begin to understand why the men of this city are carved not from comfort, but from endurance itself. The air smells of oil and ash, of sweat steeped into leather, of the morning's first drill before the birds have even dared to sing. Somewhere beyond the walls, a horn cuts through the stillness. You flinch. That's your first mistake. Hello everyone, welcome to another late night stroll through the stranger corners of history. If you found your way here, it's probably because your mind refuses to sleep. So let's give it something quietly absurd to chew on. Before we dive too deeply, a gentle nudge. If you enjoy stories that let you relax and learn at the same time, consider liking this video and subscribing to History at Bedtime. Also, feel free to leave a comment sharing your location and local time. We like to see history travel the globe alongside our viewers. Now, let's ease into tonight's journey. A voice snarls, a trainer, his tone flat as the blade at his hip. In Sparta, every movement means something. The weak betray themselves in noise. The strong speak through silence. Here, even breath is discipline. And as you struggle to breathe in the chill, you realize this isn't training for war. This is war against hunger, against sleep, against your own body. You probably won't make it through this hour. The lamps are lit. The barracks are waiting. And somewhere beyond the river, a Spartan boy is waking for his first lesson in obedience. The Spartan morning begins without mercy. Every child born within these walls was once lifted before the elders of the tribe, examined for strength, symmetry, and promise. If a baby's limbs trembled or its chest seemed weak, it was carried beyond the city to the slopes of Mount Taygetus and left there. Beneath the indifferent stars, the state had no room for frailty. Only the fit would live long enough to become men, or, in rare cases, women strong enough to bear them. Those who survived infancy were property of Sparta itself. Parents raised them until 7. After that, the city took them. It was called the agōgē, a word meaning the leading. Not a school, not a camp, a crucible. Imagine being 7, barefoot on the cold ground, surrounded by older boys trained to hurt you, guided by men trained to watch you suffer. Your first lesson, silence. Your second, pain. Both are sacred here. The boys slept in reed beds, sometimes with the reeds still biting into their skin. They learned to steal food, not because stealing was admired, but because getting caught was shameful. Hunger was constant, because hunger made you lean, alert, and angry. The instructors called it training the wolf inside. Every boy had one. Those who tamed it became warriors. Those who didn't, no one remembers their names. And through it all, the city itself watched. From the riverbanks to the temple steps, every citizen was both observer and enforcer. There was no privacy, no secret tenderness, no soft corner to hide in. Even laughter was measured. The Spartans prized brevity. Their sharp, cutting replies became legend. "Come back with your shield, or on it," mothers said, and meant it. You could smell that expectation in the air, the way iron lingers after a forge. Somewhere beyond the walls, the mountains begin to blush with dawn. The first hour of the day has begun. You rub sleep from your eyes, but the moment a thought crosses your mind, you catch yourself. Sleep is weakness. You whisper, "No complaint." Already, the older boys are forming ranks, bare-chested, arms taut with chill. They move as one, fluid, harsh, inevitable. The sound of wooden practice swords striking in rhythm becomes a heartbeat for the city itself. You feel your stomach tighten. The trainer walks the line, his whip trails behind him, whispering against the sand. No one speaks, no one moves. You can smell the oil on his leather strap, sharp and cold as morning metal. When he stops before you, he says nothing. He only waits, studying your eyes. Spartans believe fear shows their first, and if it does, they will teach you to erase it or break you trying. The second hour of your life as a Spartan has begun, and you're already fighting not to shiver. In this place, even trembling is treason. The horn sounds again, this time longer. 3 slow calls that stretch across the valley like smoke. The boys scatter from the barrack, each running to his station. You follow, heart pounding. The world outside is pale and sharp, the mountains catching the first fire of dawn. From every direction comes the sound of discipline, boots striking earth, spears thudding against wooden posts, the grunted rhythm of men who've learned to move without wasting breath. It's a music of muscle, and you are expected to know the tune by instinct. The first drill is called palestra, wrestling. The ground is sand and stone, uneven and unforgiving. You're paired with a boy barely older than yourself, though his arms are already rope and sinew. He doesn't look at you when the instructor gives the order. He lunges. The impact knocks the air from your chest. Pain flares bright, immediate and intimate. You taste dirt and copper. The instructor's voice cuts through the ringing in your ears. Get up, he says it once. In Sparta, no one repeats a command. You rise. Again, again. Each fall is a lesson. Every bruise is a teacher. They say the Spartans believed the body was the first weapon, the mind the second. Both must be sharpened until they cut without hesitation. By the time the sun clears the ridge, your limbs tremble, not from weakness, but from learning the shape of endurance. The boy who threw you offers no smile, no word. You are comrades now, not friends. Friendship here is earned in silence, sealed in sweat. When the drill ends, water is rationed sparingly. You drink from a communal basin, the liquid warm and metallic. No one gulps. Moderation is sacred. A Spartan who eats or drinks greedily betrays a lack of control, and control is everything. You glance toward the older soldiers watching from the edge of the field. Their faces are unreadable, carved from the same discipline they enforce. They are the future you are supposed to become. The next exercise is stranger. The boys form a line, standing barefoot before a long table where instructors place bowls of porridge and thin bread. One by one, they're told to step forward, but not to eat. The rule is simple. Learn patience in the presence of need. The instructors circle, watching. Anyone who reaches too soon loses the meal entirely. Hunger, again, as teacher, you think of home, whatever that means now, and your stomach knots tighter than your fists. Someone beside you sways. He's too young to hide the faint whimper that escapes him. The whip answers, a single snap, not cruel, but corrective. The boy steadies. Lesson learned. By midday, sweat slicks every back, sin clings to every scar. There is no rest, only tasks, carrying water, repairing shields, reciting laws. The words of Lycurgus, the legendary lawgiver, are burned into every memory. His laws shaped this city like a potter shapes clay. Equality among warriors, simplicity in life, obedience to the state above all. Whether Lycurgus ever truly existed no longer matters. In Sparta, belief has more power than evidence. His ghost governs every breath you take. When evening approaches, the drills slow, but they do not stop. Older warriors arrive, inspecting the boys' posture, the steadiness of their eyes. Compliments are rare, punishment constant. But somewhere in this machinery of control, you notice something else, a strange, quiet pride. These people do not train for cruelty's sake. They believe that to suffer now is to save the city later. Their hardness is inheritance, their silence, protection. The sky over Sparta glows red now, the mountains fading into indigo. Dinner is meager, barley broth, figs if fortune smiles. You eat slowly, careful not to slurp. Around you, torches flicker, painting the walls with restless light. A boy across from you catches your eye. He says nothing, only nods once. That single gesture means you survived the day, barely. The night wind carries the scent of smoke and the sound of distant singing. Low, steady, the voices of older soldiers on patrol. Their melody is neither joyful nor sad, but something in between. Like memory turned to rhythm, you lie down on your mat of reeds, sore and silent. The body hurts, but the mind begins to understand. In Sparta, survival is not endurance of pain. It's the ability to find peace within it. Sleep comes fitfully. In the darkness, a trainer's voice drifts through the room. Tomorrow, you'll be stronger, or you won't be here at all. You close your eyes and listen to the mountain breathing in the distance, steady and eternal. Somewhere deep within, the wolf they spoke of stirs. The second night begins, and the city does not sleep. Before the moon fades, you're already awake. In Sparta, dawn is not a beginning, it's a continuation. Sleep is an intermission, granted only to the disciplined. You rise with the others, the air cold enough to sting your lungs. The barracks smell of oil, leather, and sweat soaked into stone. Outside, the first horn hasn't sounded yet, but everyone moves as if it has. Order here is instinct, not command. An instructor enters, tall, wiry, eyes like flint. His name isn't offered because names mean nothing until earned. He carries a wooden staff, polished by years of use. Without a word, he walks the row, tapping each boy's chest, shoulder, and back, checking posture, muscle, tension, readiness. When he reaches you, his hand pauses a fraction longer. You flinch. Again, his staff meets your ribs, not to wound, but to teach. Stillness, he murmurs, voice like gravel. Even fear must obey. Then comes the horn, one long note, low and resonant. It rolls through the camp, over the valley, even up to the mountain where the city's dead are buried. The boys snap to attention. Silence falls so completely that you hear the river moving miles away. The morning ritual begins with prayer, not to comfort, but to bind. A priest invokes Artemis, Orthia, goddess of endurance. Her shrine stands nearby, its stones darkened by blood and rain. The prayers are short, sharp, functional. They do not ask for mercy, they ask for strength. A bowl of oil passes from hand to hand. Each boy rubs it into his skin. It's not vanity, it's armor against the cold, and a reminder that the body is sacred, but only when hardened. Training starts again, this time in formation. Wooden shields thump into position. Lines lock shoulder to shoulder, and the drill master's voice cuts the air. Move as one, think as none. You march through dust that rises in golden clouds. Every misstep earns a strike, every hesitation a sneer. The rhythm becomes hypnotic. Heel, shield, breath silence. The sound merges into something larger, something living. Sparta's heartbeat. By mid-morning, the exercises shift to the spear. The dory is heavy, 6 to 7 feet of ashwood tipped with bronze. The balance is deliberate, top-heavy, awkward, punishing to control. You practice thrusts, pivots, and the killing blow known as athismos, the forward drive that pushes the enemy line into collapse. The instructors bark corrections, lower, tighter. Again, your shoulders ache, your hands blister, but no one dares slow. Blood on your palms is common, showing it is not. When the session ends, you collapse to your knees, gasping. No one speaks. The quiet is part of the discipline. Then, from somewhere behind, a rough laugh breaks the stillness. It's one of the older soldiers, a Mara veteran. His teeth are yellowed from years of rationed food, but his eyes burn with humor. Still breathing, he says. Then you're halfway to a Spartan. It's the closest thing to kindness you'll hear all week. The break that follows is not rest, it's inspection. Clothing is minimal. A single cloak, no shoes. In winter, this becomes torture, but the cold, they say, sharpens courage. You are expected to walk barefoot even on frost to train the nerves to obedience. A boy beside you winces as his foot meets Fronsin mud. The instructor sees. He nods to another boy without hesitation that once slaps his comrade's face. No weakness, he says simply. The punished boy doesn't reply. The lesson is over. Later, you march to the river to bathe. The water is glacier cold, flowing straight from Taygetus. Each immersion is a small act of defiance against pain, against comfort. The cold bites into your bones, and for a moment you feel nothing at all. Then strangely, everything, it's as if your body resets, erases exhaustion, begins again. The others don't flinch. You try to mirror them, focusing on the sound of the current instead of the ache. In that moment, you realize something quietly terrifying. Pain here isn't punishment, it's participation. When you return, the midday sun sits high, merciless. The meals are still meager: barley, cheese, and black broth. That broth, made from pig's blood and vinegar, is infamous even among Greeks. Foreign visitors once called it the taste of iron. The boys eat it without complaint. You swallow, grimace, and earn a single approving nod from an instructor. That's how Sparta praises. Through absence of correction, the afternoon is devoted to endurance. You run through the fields in formation, spears on shoulders, cloaks heavy with sweat. The dust rises so thick it blurs the horizon. Somewhere far away, you hear laughter, not of joy, but of challenge. The older soldiers run too, alongside you, pushing harder with every step. Their voices merge with yours, chanting an old refrain, with our shields not behind them. The rhythm drives you forward until thought fades and only motion remains. As the sun dips lower, casting long bronze shadows across the city, the final trial of the day arrives. The gauntlet. 2 rows of older boys stand facing each other, clubs in hand. One by one, each trainee runs between them. Every blow is a question. Will you endure? When it's your turn, the world narrows to a tunnel of faces and swinging wood. Pain blooms. Again and again. You don't cry out. You reach the end, barely standing, skin welted and raw. The instructor watches, expression unreadable. Then he nods once. Better. When darkness finally comes, it isn't peaceful. You lie on your mats, trembling, heart still pounding from the gauntlet. Outside, the city hums. Soldiers patrolling, smiths hammering, priests chanting. Sparta doesn't sleep, it smolders. You stare into the shadows, and somewhere between exhaustion and delirium, you feel it, a flicker of pride, faint but real. You survived another day. The wolf inside has learned your name, but dawn will come again, and it will ask for more. The day begins with the sound of bronze against bronze. Spears striking shields in unison echo down the river valley like the heartbeat of something vast and ancient. You move in a rhythm without thinking now. That's what the instructors want, to erase the space between command and response. Every boy around you is an echo of the same discipline, the same hunger. Even the air tastes metallic, as if the gods themselves have been watching through the dust. When the drill ends, the men arrive, real soldiers, not boys in training. They are the hoplites of Sparta, men who have stood in the phalanx shoulder to shoulder until their bodies and shields became a single wall. Their presence alone straightens spines. One of them, his cloak sun-faded to rust, walks the line slowly. A Spartan doesn't fight for himself, he says. He fights for the man on his right. The words are simple, but they carry the weight of centuries. The phalanx, the tightly packed formation of spearmen, made Sparta almost unbeatable in the 5th century BCE. At battles like Thermopylae, that wall of men held back armies many times their number. The older soldier continues his inspection. He points to your shield. Too clean, he says. A shield should carry the story of its owner. You lower your eyes. Shields are sacred here. It's the one piece of equipment a Spartan must never lose. It protects the city more than the man. To drop it is shame. To return without it dishonor. The saying every Spartan mother repeats, with your shield or on it, isn't poetry. It's policy. After midday, the drills shift to endurance games. The heat presses against your skin like a living thing. One exercise involves holding the spear extended at arm's length until the muscles shake. Another demands standing motionless while instructors march among the ranks, whispering insults meant to provoke. No one flinches. The silence becomes so thick, it's almost sacred. The instructors sing satisfied. Endurance here is worship. That night, when the stars return, the boys are taken to the edge of the forest. The world feels larger there. No walls, no firelight, just the pulse of crickets and wind through reeds. The lead instructor speaks quietly. Tomorrow you will hunt. It's not a game. The ritual, known as the crypteia, is the final step before becoming a man of Sparta. Each youth must survive alone in the wild, armed with nothing but a dagger. He must learn to live unseen, to endure hunger, to master fear. Some historians believe it also served as a test of stealth and discipline for future soldiers. Others suspect darker purposes, but the truth, buried beneath centuries of legend, remains uncertain. When morning comes, they give you a single meal and nothing else. The forest smells of pine and earth, sweet and dangerous. For the first time, there is no voice commanding you, only silence and your heartbeat in it. The forest around Sparta is not gentle. The ground is uneven, covered with thorns and roots older than the city itself. You move carefully, aware that every sound carries. For food, there are berries, sometimes small birds, if you're quick enough to trap them. The hunger is sharper than fear now, but it teaches a strange focus. The night brings cold, and the sky spills with stars. You sleep in bursts, listening for the snap of branches. There are wolves here, but the real danger is failure. Days pass. You stop counting. The smell of the city fades from your skin, replaced by smoke and rain. One evening, you spot movement in the brush, a patrol of soldiers passing silently through the trees. They do not acknowledge you, though you know they've seen you. This, too, is part of the test. In Sparta, even mercy is measured. When you return, thinner and harder, no one cheers. Success is expected. Failure is unspoken. You're given a red cloak, the mark of the hoplite. Its color is not for decoration, but to conceal wounds in battle. Two facts survive from every chronicle. First, that Spartans wore their crimson cloaks, even in peacetime, to remind themselves of duty. And second, that the red dye was so costly that only soldiers were permitted to use it. The sight of it across the plain was enough to make weaker armies hesitate. The training shifts again. Now it's less about obedience and more about unity. You learn to move in formation until you can anticipate the man beside you without sight. The rhythm of the phalanx is hypnotic. Shields locking, spears thrusting forward, and crunching beneath hundreds of synchronized feet. The smallest mistake could destroy the entire line. You begin to understand why individuality here is a luxury they cannot afford. After drills, the men gather in the Syssitia, communal mess halls where every citizen eats the same meal. Even kings dine here. The food is simple: black broth, barley bread, a few olives. The rule is equality. Each man contributes to the meal from his own harvest or spoils, and anyone who fails to bring his share loses his place at the table. To eat with your comrades is an honor. To be excluded is a living death. One obscure but fascinating custom persists in the records. Boys were occasionally invited to these meals to listen silently to the elders' debates. They could not speak, but they were expected to remember every word, a quiet apprenticeship in wisdom and restraint. Later that night, under flickering lamplight, you catch sight of the older men tending their armor, bronze, polished until it mirrors firelight. One of them looks up and says, "You'll sleep lighter now. Warriors always do." You nod, though you're not sure you'll sleep at all. Outside, the city hums like a forge, endless, patient, unyielding. Morning comes with rain, a rare blessing in this dry land. The barracks smell of wet earth and iron. Training continues. Though the ground has turned to mud, the boys run barefoot, slipping and rising, their red cloaks heavy with water. The instructors say, rain is Sparta's way of softening the earth so men can fall without fear. You're not sure if it's wisdom or humor, but you repeat it anyway. In Sparta, repetition turns words into belief. Today's lesson is about history, told not by teachers, but by soldiers too old for the field. They speak of the Battle of Thermopylae in 480 BCE, when King Leonidas and 300 Spartans faced the Persian army. The men don't shout when they tell it. They speak softly, like recalling a prayer. They remind you that every Spartan at Thermopylae knew he would die, yet none hesitated. The other fact they emphasize is equally sacred. The delay brought by those men allowed Greece to rally and win its freedom. Here, glory is measured not in victory, but in usefulness to the state. As the stories unfold, you notice something strange. No one calls Leonidas a hero. They call him a citizen. That's what every Spartan is supposed to be, a part of the whole. The idea of personal fame, so prized in other Greek cities, is almost an insult here. Honor is collective, anonymity divine. The young listen in silence, understanding that their own names may one day vanish into the chorus of Sparta's memory. Later, the instructor leads you to the temple of Artemis, or Thea. The structure is small, its columns worn by centuries of devotion. A cold wind carries the scent of laurel and bloodless sacrifice, grain and oil offered instead of flesh. The goddess is worshipped here as the guardian of discipline and the judge of youth. In the past, her altar was the site of endurance rituals, so severe that even other Greeks recoiled. Scholars still debate whether the pain inflicted there was symbolic purification or a survival of older, darker rites. Either way, the lesson remains: endurance is sacred. When the ceremony ends, the boys file out into the fading light. The sky burns orange behind the mountains. You watch the shadows stretch long across the plain, knowing that tomorrow will bring the same rhythm, pain-silence, pride. But somewhere in that sameness lies the secret of this city's endurance. Sparta doesn't build monuments, it builds men who need none. Night settles, the air cools, and the distant river hums like a lullaby. You lie on your mat, cloak wrapped tight, muscles sore but alive. The wolf inside you sleeps, but lightly. The mountain, as always, keeps watch. The next dawn feels heavier, as if the air itself carries the weight of expectation. Clouds drift low over the mountains, turning the city into a painting of muted bronze and grey. The horn sounds one long note, and you rise automatically, body already obeying before the mind fully wakes. The habits of Sparta are not learned, they are absorbed like scars. Today is not training, it's ceremony. The older soldiers line the square in perfect formation, shields gleaming, cloaks draped with ritual precision. In the center stands the ephor, the magistrate who oversees the city's laws and the moral state of its youth. His face is hidden by the deep fold of his cloak, but his voice is sharp as flint. He speaks of unity, discipline, and the fragile thread that holds the city together. No man, he says, is greater than his neighbor's shield. It's here that you learn your first true lesson in Spartan politics. The ephors, 5 of them, rule beside the 2 kings, a balance of power unlike any other in Greece. This dual kingship, one descended from Heracles himself, keeps Sparta stable and suspicious in equal measure. While one king leads the army, the other guards the homeland. Historians have long debated whether this system was born of genius or paranoia, but either way, it endured longer than most empires. After the ceremony, you march through the agora, the city's open market. There is no shouting, no bargaining. The air hums with restraint. A woman passes you carrying a basket of olives. She looks you straight in the eye, unafraid. Spartan women are unlike any others in Greece. They own land, manage estates, and speak freely in public. Even the Athenians mocked them for it. Only Spartan women give birth to men. One is said to have replied when insulted by an outsider, "It isn't arrogance, it's law." Every Spartan woman is trained in strength, not to fight, but to ensure her children can. You stop at a small shrine to the Dioscuri, twin patrons of warriors. Someone has left an offering, a bronze spearhead wrapped in red cloth. The scent of olive oil and ash lingers in the air. Around you, the city moves without hurry. Life here has rhythm, but no rush. Every task, every breath feels ritualized, as though time itself is disciplined into obedience. In the evening, you sit with the others outside the barracks. One boy hums a tune too softly to recognize. Another sharpens his blade by lamplight. Above you, stars begin to pierce the violet sky. Somewhere distant, you hear laughter from a gathering of elders, a brief sound, rare and startling, gone before you can believe it was real. For the first time since you arrived, you feel something like belonging, not comfort, but acceptance. The city has taken you in, and in return, you owe it everything. The next day brings the long march. You rise before dawn, pack lightly just your spear, shield, and cloak, and follow the line of soldiers winding into the hills. The destination is unknown. That's part of the lesson. Sparta trains warriors to follow without question. Orders are not discussed. They are absorbed. You learn to find peace in uncertainty. The path climbs steeply, twisting through groves of cypress and olive. The air grows thinner, scented with resin and stone. A raven circles overhead, its shadow flickering across your shield. Hours pass. Sweat runs down your spine, cool in the wind. The line never breaks. Each step becomes a meditation. Pain fades into rhythm. Rhythm becomes calm. By midday, you reach a plateau overlooking the Eurotas Valley. The land below stretches like a woven cloth. Fields, river, red roofs glinting in the sun. The instructor halts the march and gestures toward the horizon. That, he says, is what we defend. The statement is simple, but you feel its gravity. This view, this silence, this discipline. It is the core of Sparta. Two historical truths are spoken here: that Spartan soldiers were forbidden to travel without state permission, and that they were bound to defend their land until death. Their world was small, but within that narrow space, they built something enduring. Later, the instructors form the men into ranks and begin the shield drill. It looks deceptively easy. Each man must press his shield into the one beside him until no gap remains. The weight is immense. You feel the pressure of the man to your left, the strain of the man to your right. The phalanx is not a formation. It is a covenant. You move as one, breathe as one, trust as one. If one falters, all collapse. The thought is both terrifying and beautiful. When the sun begins to set, the company rests beside a spring. The water tastes of stone and iron. An older soldier tells a story of the Battle of Plataea, when the Spartans faced the Persians again after Thermopylae. The turning point came not from a grand strategy, but from endurance, the ability to hold the line until the enemy broke. That's what it means to be Spartan, he says quietly, to be the wall that does not fall. That night, the men sleep beneath open sky. The stars shimmer like cold fire, and the air hums with the faint sound of crickets. You lie awake, tracing constellations between the peaks. For the first time, you feel the strange comfort of exhaustion, the peace that follows when the body has given everything it has to give. Morning light pours over the hills, and the city glows faintly in the distance, its roofs catching the dawn like embers. You march home in silence. No one speaks, though everyone knows the test has been passed. Sparta does not celebrate endurance. It assumes it. The only reward for survival is the next trial. When you return, the city welcomes you not with music or feasts, But with order restored, the rhythm continues, unbroken. You slip back into drills, into the quiet routine that now feels almost sacred. There's comfort in repetition. Even the pain has its pattern. That evening, you're assigned to help with the city's festival preparations. It's for the Carnea, a celebration of Apollo as guardian of discipline and harmony. The air fills with the scent of roasted barley, fresh laurel and river weeds. Dancers rehearse in slow, precise movements. Nothing wild, everything measured. One unusual custom stands out. During the festival, no war could be declared. For 9 days, Sparta laid down its weapons in respect to the god. It's a detail easily forgotten in history's noise, but it reveals something profound. Beneath the iron, a heartbeat of restraint. As night falls, torches bloom across the agora. The city transforms. Even warriors allow themselves brief smiles. Music hums low, built from pipes and drums. The rhythm is ancient, hypnotic. You feel the warmth of fire on your face, the rough press of the crowd around you. For once, no commands, no drills, no tests, just the strange, quiet joy of existing within the machine that raised you. When the last song fades, you walk back to the barracks beneath the sky, spilling with stars. You think of the mountains, the hunts, the long marches. You think of pain and how it's changed shape. No longer an enemy, but a familiar companion. Sparta has burned away everything soft, leaving only purpose. And in that purpose, you find something almost peaceful. As you drift towards sleep, you remember a phrase one of the elders murmured at the festival. A Spartan does not seek rest, he becomes it. You don't understand it yet, but one day you might. Historians still debate whether the quiet grace of Sparta's rituals was discipline or repression, wisdom or fear. But as the city darkens around you, it hardly matters. In this world, every breath is a vow, and tonight you are still breathing. Dawn returns, pale and quiet over the rooftops. The valley is silver with dew, and the air smells of olive and smoke. You rise with the others before the horn, because by now the rhythm of Sparta has replaced the rhythm of your heart. No one tells you when to move. You simply do. The discipline has become instinct. This morning's drill begins with silence. The instructor stands before the line, his cloak dark against the growing light. A Spartan's strength, he says, is not his arm but his restraint. His words drift like incense over the ranks. You think you understand, but then he points toward the mountains. Restraint, he adds, is only possible for those who could destroy and choose not to. That is the paradox of Sparta, a city built for war, yet obsessed with control. They believe chaos begins inside the individual. If you can master the self, you can master the battlefield. It is a philosophy older than any statue or scroll, passed through sweat rather than ink. Historians still debate whether this devotion to inner order was born from wisdom or fear. Fear of what might happen if the walls cracked and the noise of humanity rushed in. After drills, the soldiers marched toward the river for an assembly. This is the Apella, the people's gathering. Every full citizen, from farmer to veteran, has a voice here. They vote not by words, but by shouting. The louder roar decides. It is democracy, stripped to bone and muscle. Two historical truths stand out. First, that the Spartan assembly elected kings and ephors alike. Second, that any man who grew too proud could be exiled by that same vote. Even their rulers served under the city's shadow. At midday, you glimpse a group of women training near the temple fields. They wear short tunics, arms strong from throwing javelins. Unlike women in other Greek cities, Spartan women exercise publicly. They run, wrestle, and race, not for vanity, but for strength. They believe healthy mothers bear strong children. The sight of them, confident and laughing, is almost disorienting. Elsewhere in Greece, such freedom would be scandal. Here, it's survival. As the sun lowers, you return to the barracks. The air hums with the faint sound of flutes from the gymnasium. A soldier beside you says softly, "Even our music trains the will." You nod, though you don't fully grasp it. In Sparta, even beauty has discipline. The next day brings an unexpected calm. The city is quieter than usual. Even the drills seem subdued. You soon learn why. A messenger has arrived from another Greek city, Corinth, perhaps, or Argos. Diplomats come rarely to Sparta, and when they do, they must wait. The ephors decide when outsiders may speak. In this city, words are weapons too, and must be drawn carefully. The messenger is brought before the council. He speaks quickly, offering alliances, trade, promises of shared prosperity. The Spartan response is brief. One of the ephors simply says, "We already have what we need." And that's it. No debate, no ceremony. The messenger bows, confused, and leaves. You watch from the crowd, stunned by the simplicity. In other cities, diplomacy is an art. Here, it's an interruption. Two historical facts define this silence. The first, Sparta maintained strict isolation for centuries, limiting foreign travel and trade to preserve its customs. The second, when diplomacy failed, their armies spoke instead. They were not cruel, only certain. The peace of Sparta was built on reputation. No one dared test it twice. That evening, an older soldier tells you stories of the Peloponnesian League, the alliance Sparta once commanded. He describes the slow, deliberate spread of Spartan influence, not through conquest, but through endurance. They feared Athens' words, he says, but they feared our silence more. You realize then that the city's restraint, so often mocked, is its most potent weapon. After dinner, the men gather around the fire. One begins to hum a marching song, low and rhythmic. The words are ancient, perhaps older than the city itself. It speaks of fields defended, brothers buried, names forgotten. You close your eyes and listen. The melody is neither sad nor proud. It simply is, steady and unyielding, like the mountain itself. Before sleep, you pass by the women's fields again. A young girl practices discuss under the moonlight. Her throw arcs perfectly into the dark. When she sees you watching, she grins, not coy, but fearless. It strikes you that in Sparta, even youth carries the weight of the city's pride. You return to your mat thinking that perhaps endurance isn't always stern. Sometimes it smiles. The morning begins with an omen. A bird, black, silent, circles the barracks 3 times before disappearing east. The priest of Apollo declares it favorable, a sign of strength before a campaign. The soldiers nod, untroubled. In Sparta, superstition walks beside strategy. Preparation for war is ritual. Every detail, from the tying of a sandal to the polishing of bronze, is sacred. The cloak you wear today might be the one you die in tomorrow. So you keep it spotless. You watch the veterans align their armor, hands moving with the precision of artisans. The shields gleam with the city's emblem, a scarlet lambda. The letter L for Lacedaemon, Sparta's true name. 2 facts are recited by rote as you work. First, that Sparta's army was the best trained in Greece, professional when others were temporary. Second, that they fought not for conquest, but for preservation. Every war, they say, is defense. As preparations continue, a curious tradition unfolds. Married men and women are reunited briefly before the march. The atmosphere is tender, yet formal. One soldier you know bows to his wife as if to a queen. Their conversation is short, practical words, no tears. Later that night, another soldier explains the ritual. Marriages here are not for passion, but for lineage. Husbands visit their wives in secret, often under cover of darkness, to preserve the mystery of desire. Historians still debate whether this practice was intended to strengthen loyalty or to keep warriors focused on the state rather than the home. Either way, it worked. Love in Sparta is as disciplined as war. The next morning, the march begins. You stand among the ranks, shield at your side, spear balanced against your shoulder. The sun rises red over the valley. The horns sound. The city does not shout farewell. It watches in silence. Behind you, women stand on the walls, their cloaks billowing in the wind. One calls out a phrase you've heard many times, but now feel in your bones. Come back with your shield or on it. The army moves as one, the earth trembling beneath thousands of measured steps. You do not know where this march will end, only that it begins in faith, in discipline, in duty, in something far larger than yourself. And for the first time, you feel it fully. This place of dust and silence, so often called cruel, is not built on hatred of weakness, but love of strength. The difference, like everything in Sparta, is quiet. The march continues for days. The sound of sandals striking packed earth becomes a language all its own. Steady, deliberate, patient. At night, fires glow like scattered stars across the plain, each one a small island of endurance. You sleep in armor, head resting on your shield. The ground is cold, but the rhythm of the army warms you. The men speak little. Silence is its own discipline, and in Sparta, even conversation obeys command. On the 3rd night, you reach the frontier, a low ridge overlooking the valley of another city-state. Torches flicker in the distance like watchful eyes. The officers issue orders in short bursts of Dorian Greek, and the lines shift fluidly into formation. This is not chaos, it's choreography. Two verified customs unfold before you. First, before battle, Spartans comb their hair and oil their skin. Not vanity, but ritual calm, a symbol of readiness before death. Second, they play flutes during the charge, slow and steady, so the line advances in perfect rhythm. It's unnerving how peaceful it feels, as if they are walking into prayer, not combat. The veterans teach you how to read the horizon, where to look for movement, where to expect fear. They remind you that panic spreads faster than arrows. In Sparta, courage isn't loud, it's controlled. You realize then that all the years of silence, hunger, and discipline were never cruelty. They were preparation for this, the moment when the city's will becomes flesh. That night, before the clash, the men sit around their fires and eat barley bread, dipped in oil. One soldier hums an old war song about Leonidas, the king who fell at Thermopylae. The melody is low, almost tender. You can't tell if it's mourning or devotion, perhaps both. Across the circle, a commander says quietly, "A Spartan doesn't fight for glory. He fights because he has practiced doing hard things." The words sound simple, but they carry the gravity of truth honed by centuries. When the order comes to rest, you lie under a sky heavy with stars. You imagine home, the barracks, the river, the quiet steadiness of routine. Here, even longing feels disciplined. The wind moves softly through the grass, and for a fleeting moment, it sounds like the breath of the mountain itself. The same mountain that watched over your training, the same one that took the weak and kept the strong. You close your eyes, and for the first time, you feel no difference between fear and reverence. The morning comes not with horns, but with silence. The men rise, wordless, preparing as they always do. Shields are polished, cloaks adjusted, lines formed. The air feels heavier than usual, not tense, exactly, but aware. Someone says the gods are watching. Another replies that they always are. There is no talk of victory, no speculation about the enemy, only preparation, only purpose. As the first light breaks over the hills, the army moves. The ground trembles beneath the synchronized march. Bronze, leather, harpy, the flutes begin their steady rhythm, guiding every step. The formation locks, shield against shield, until the men move as one breathing wall. This is the phalanx in its purest form. No individual, no hero, just unity. One historical fact remains certain. Spartan warriors were forbidden to break rank in pursuit of personal glory. To step out of line, even for triumph, was treason to the shield wall. The second truth, in battle, Sparta's soldiers advanced slowly, deliberately, letting fear destroy their enemies long before the spears did. As the armies meet, the sound is not chaos, but rhythm. Wood on bronze, breath on dust, the collective roar of will meeting will. The sky fills with grit. The world narrows to the space of a heartbeat. And then, suddenly, it's over. The enemy breaks and scatters, leaving only silence and the sharp scent of sweat and sand. You stand among your comrades, chest heaving, eyes unfocused. You feel neither triumph nor grief, only the strange stillness of survival. That night, the fires burn low. The veterans speak softly, sharing fragments of memory. One tells of a king who wept after his first victory because it meant other men's sons would never come home. Another recalls how Spartan mothers carried messages to the battlefield, not of love, but of pride. It's then you realize the greatest weapon Sparta ever forged wasn't the spear or the shield. It was the belief that discipline could outlast death. Later, when the camp quiets, a soldier begins to whistle the same tune you heard during training. You find yourself humming along without meaning to. The melody drifts through the air, light as dust, as though the city itself is singing through you. And somewhere in that sound, you sense the weight of history. All those who endured before, all those who will follow. Sparta is not a place, it's a posture, and tonight you hold it perfectly still. The army returns at dawn. The mountains open like great gates, and the city greets its soldiers in silence. There are no parades, no triumphs. Sparta celebrates endurance, not victory. The men wash their armor, store their shields, and resume their duties as if nothing has changed. That's the discipline. Every battle is just another day of work. You walk through the agora, the market square, and see life continuing. Women at the fountains, boys training, elders watching from shaded porches. The city breathes, unbroken. One of your comrades whispers, "We return," and the city doesn't even blink. You smile faintly. That's how it's meant to be. The machine must never pause. That evening, the ephors hold a brief ceremony at the temple of Apollo. Offerings are laid, oil, grain, wreaths of laurel. No blood, no spectacle. The high priest prays not for conquest, but for balance, that Sparta may remain exactly as it is, neither growing nor shrinking, eternal in its discipline. Two truths echo in the ceremony. The city was forbidden to build walls, trusting that its warriors were its defense, and wealth, though it existed, was deliberately hidden to preserve equality. To the outside world, this seems austere. To the Spartans, it was freedom from corruption. Later that night, the soldiers gather at the communal meal. The black broth steams in the bowls, thick and sour. You take a slow sip. It tastes of salt, smoke, and something else. History, perhaps. An elder sits beside you and says quietly, "The broth reminds us that comfort is the first enemy." Around you, men nod, and the conversation turns to farming, children, and weather. Nothing heroic, nothing grand. The city has no use for triumphal stories. It prefers endurance told plainly. As the meal ends, one of the younger men asks a question that hangs in the air. Will Sparta ever change? The elder smiles faintly. Change is what happens to those who can't endure. When the fire dies down, you step outside. The night is cool and filled with the scent of river reeds. The stars hang low, sharp and bright. You think about the battles, the drills, the hunger, all the moments that shaped you into something hard and quiet. You think of the city, its rhythm, its silence, and as you breathe, slow and deep, you understand that Sparta was never about strength alone. It was about the peace that comes from knowing who you are, even when the world forgets your name. Somewhere in the dark, a bell rings, soft, rhythmic, eternal. This city exhales. Another day begins. Years pass quietly, like the steady march of boots across familiar ground. The body changes, hardens, then begins to yield. The scars become maps, stories told without words. In Sparta, growing older is not retreat, it's transformation. You no longer rise with the horn, you rise before it. The habits of youth have settled into the rhythm of your bones. Now you train others. The boys stand where you once stood, barefoot, hungry, their eyes bright with that mix of fear and determination you remember so well. You recognize yourself in them, though you'd never admit it. The instructors say little has changed, but you can feel it. Time moves differently now. There are fewer soldiers, fewer victories. The city still breathes discipline, but the world beyond its hills is growing louder. Each morning you walk the perimeter walls, though technically there are none. Sparta is the only city in Greece without fortifications, a fact recorded and admired even by its enemies. A city of men needs no walls. King Agōgē once said, and his words remain a kind of prayer. The strength of Sparta lies not in stone, but in the hearts of those who defend it. Yet as you walk the quiet ridges overlooking the Eurotas, you sense how fragile even faith can be. During training, you remind the boys of their inheritance. You speak of Thermopylae, Plataea, and the long march of the phalanx, but you also teach them smaller things, the way to steady a trembling hand, how to read silence before battle, when to show mercy, and when to stand unbent. You quote Lycurgus, "A citizen should never live for himself." The words still taste like iron and ash. When the drills end, the boys scatter to their chores. You remain behind, watching the sky darken to bronze. The elders say that when the wind blows from the mountains at dusk, it carries the breath of the old kings. You almost believe it. You've seen too much endurance to doubt the invisible. In the evening, a messenger arrives with news. The city of Thebes has challenged Sparta's supremacy. For centuries, no one has dared. The council gathers, and by torchlight, decisions are made. There will be battle again, though you are older now. Your limbs slower, your heart quieter. Still, you prepare. The armor feels heavier than it once did, but the purpose is the same. Discipline has outlasted youth. The army departs under a sky of pale gold. The younger men lead, their faces taut with pride. You follow, slower but steady, the red cloak dragging faintly in the dust. The fields outside the city stretch endless and empty. The smell of barley and dry earth mixes with the faint tang of metal. The march to Leuctra is long, but Spartans do not complain. They conserve words as they conserve breath. The officers move quietly among the ranks, adjusting formation, checking the rhythm of the flutes. For the first time, you sense something new, a hesitation, small but real. The city has sent fewer men than in the old days, and the world beyond the mountains has learned Sparta's ways. The perfect wall of phalanx is no longer a mystery. When the battle begins, the earth trembles. The Theban army, led by Epaminondas, uses a new formation, deep and weighted on one flank. The Spartans hold their line, as always, shields locked tight, spears angled low. But this time, the rhythm falters. The enemy pushes hard on the left, breaking through. The sound of bronze and bone merges into something unrecognizable. You hold your ground as long as you can, but the line bends, and history bends with it. The Battle of Leuctra in 371 BCE marks the end of Sparta's dominance. It's a fact that will echo through every Greek chronicle. The unbreakable city broken at last. Yet in the moment, defeat feels strangely familiar. It's not chaos or despair, it's fatigue, pure and simple. You retreat in formation as trained, your shield still steady though your heart shakes. That night, the survivors gather in silence. No one speaks of loss. In Sparta, even grief must obey the law. The commander walks the camp, counting shields, not names. A boy asks quietly, "Are we still Spartans?" You answer without thinking, "Yes, because we endured." Back home, the city does not wail. Mothers meet their sons, bodies without tears. A woman standing by the river simply says, "Better a city of courage than a grave of cowards." The sentence passes from mouth to mouth, not as comfort, but as fact. The city folds its grief into order, as it always has. Historians still debate whether Sparta's fall was pride or inevitability, whether discipline itself became too rigid to bend. But to those who lived it, it wasn't philosophy. It was just another battle to endure. Years pass again, and the valley grows quieter. The sound of marching fades. The drills grow smaller. Sparta remains, but softer, like stone worn smooth by the river. You walk slower now, though the habit of readiness never leaves you. The boys you trained have become men. Some have scars, others empty eyes. You nod to them in passing, and they nod back, silent respect moving between you like a current. One afternoon, you visit the burial grounds beyond the river. The graves are marked not with names, but with symbols, shields, spears, wreath. Spartan soldiers are buried plain and equal. Another of their enduring customs. The only exceptions are those who died in childbirth or in battle. Theirs are named, for they gave life and death to the city. Two truths persist in the records. First, that equality in death mirrored equality in life, and second, that their funerals were quiet affairs. No wailing, no tombs of grandeur. The city refused to let grief become spectacle. As you stand among the graves, a soft wind moves through the reeds. It carries a scent of time and smoke, the smell of home. You remember the first time you stood barefoot on the training ground, trembling. You remember the whip, the hunger, the cold, all of it. You realize now was not meant to kill weakness, but to teach peace, the peace that comes when nothing can hurt you more than what already has. You turn toward the city and see it glowing faintly in the afternoon light. Children's voices echo down the lanes, their laughter rare but real. Women hang laundry along the riverbank, red cloaks fluttering like small flames. Life continues. That's the miracle. Before nightfall, you visit the temple of Artemis Orphea one last time. The priest greets you with a nod, recognizing the limp in your step. He offers a small cup of wine, simple, tart. You've served the law, he says. Now serve rest. You smile. It's the gentlest command you've ever heard. As dusk settles, you walk home along the narrow streets. The smell of olive oil and hearth smoke follows you. The city is quieter now, yet its pulse remains steady. Sparta endures, not because of strength, but because of memory. And as the stars rise above the dark line of Taygetus, you understand what the elders meant when they said endurance is its own kind of prayer. The years have thinned the once mighty city. The barracks that once roared with drills now hum quietly, a handful of boys training beneath a pale sun. The mountains remain unchanged, but everything beneath them breathes a little slower. You sit by the river often these days, watching the water slide over the stones. Smooth, patient, endless, Sparta has learned to whisper where it once commanded. Visitors come now from far places, philosophers from Athens, traders from Rhodes, even soldiers from Rome. They walk through the streets with wide eyes, studying the people who once shaped the world's idea of discipline. The irony is not lost on you. The conquerors of Greece now revere its most conquered city. One historical truth endures. Centuries after its fall, Sparta's reputation remains sacred to the Romans. Generals train their sons on tales of Leonidas and Lycurgus, envying a people who valued order more than gold. A Roman once asked an old Spartan if the city still trained warriors. The old man replied, "Only enough to remember." You understand that answer now. The discipline remains, even if the battles have faded. The law of Lycurgus still guides daily life, though softened by time. The boys still rise early. The women still walk with steady pride. The meals remain simple: olives, bread, black broth. Nothing here ever truly changes, only becomes quieter. Yet there is tenderness in the silence. The city that once sent armies now raises grandchildren. You pass a group of children playing in the dust, their laughter echoing down the narrow lanes. One of them holds a wooden shield, too large for his arm. He pretends to fight invisible foes, shouting words he doesn't yet understand. When he sees you watching, he smiles shyly. You nod, remember. You say softly, "The strongest wall is built from those who stand together." The child blinks, unsure whether he's been scolded or blessed. You rise and walk slowly toward the hills. The path winds past the temple, past the training fields where ghosts still seem to move in formation. The grass grows thick over old footprints, but the shape of discipline remains, invisible, indestructible. The city endures through memory, and memory endures through those who keep walking its dust. As twilight deepens, the mountains turn purple, and a faint chill settles in the air. The wind from Taygetus smells of cedar and salt, the same scent that's lingered since the first boy was sent into the wild to find himself. You breathe it in deeply, as if it might preserve you too. For a long moment, you stand there, listening to the sound of the river below and the distant song of a flute drifting through the valley. Even now, Sparta does not sleep. It simply rests, perfectly still. Night has settled softly over the valley. The stars bloom slowly above the dark shoulders of Taygetus, each one bright and patient, like embers that refuse to die. The city below glows faintly, a few lamps, the low hum of a world that has learned to breathe quietly after centuries of command. You walk home one final time through the narrow streets, the stones warm beneath your feet. The scent of oil and smoke drifts through open doorways. The air feels clean, ancient, and forgiving. You pause by the river. The water murmurs as it always has, weaving around the stones like memory finding its way through time. You dip your hand in, and the current feels colder than you expect, crisp, alive. For a moment, you think of the boys in training, the sound of wooden swords striking, the rhythm of boots in the dust. You think of the mothers at the city gates, the quiet songs in the barracks, the faces of those who endured without complaint. All of it, you realize, was not about strength for its own sake. It was about stillness, the kind of stillness that can hold even chaos without breaking. The stars shift. The breeze carries the scent of time and rain. You lean back and close your eyes, and the years seem to dissolve. The drills, the marches, the battles. What remains is rhythm, the slow exhale of a city that outlasted its noise. Somewhere beyond the hills, the first light of dawn begins to stretch along the horizon. You listen to it arrive, the sound of nothing in a world that once demanded everything. Sparta sleeps now. The river keeps its secrets. The mountains keep their watch. And you, who have walked its roads and felt its silence, breathe with it one last time. The city of iron dreams in peace. The shield is laid down. The hour has ended. Rest comes, quiet as stone, gentle as the wind through olive trees. Let the night hold you. Let the world fade. Sparta endures, and so do you.